government, Ogun State, the first in the nation, in conjunction with United Nations Population Fund, organized a workshop for the dissemination of the national guidelines for state procurement in order for the state to reach a contraceptive prevalence rate of 52% by 2025. Representatives from the United Nations Population Fund stated the benefits of family planning and also commended the state government for the feat.
For family planning, it is linked directly to infant and child mortality, directly. So it's not me or all over the world. Family planning has been adjudged a development best buy.
We're extremely happy that we have a guidelines that tell states exactly how funds can be harnessed and how we can use to procure FP commodities.
Representing the Association of Local Government of Nigeria, ALGON, Ogun State Chapter, Honorable Bolaji Odusonya commended the state government's initiative.
But what we've seen is another feather being added to the achievement of the governor in trailblazing in the area of health. Just last week, he got an award in the Southwest about the COVID-19. I want to say well done to the commissioner too for leading the team, right?
Commissioner for Health, Ogun State, Dr. Tomi Koka, in her delivery, reiterated the state government's dedication towards ensuring that contraceptive prevalence rate of 52% was achieved in the state by 2025.
In recent times, the Ogun State government, under the administration of His Excellency, Prince Dr. Abeokuta, has made investments in the health sector towards advancing access to family planning products and services. Some, but not all of those interventions include the establishment of the Ogun State Family Planning Planning Training Center and Skills Lab for midwifery students with the support of UNFPA. There has also been a recent recruitment drive of local doctors and midwives, nurses, to fill the skill gaps for maternal health services across the state.
Highlight of the event was the symbolic launching of the guideline by dignitaries present. Ayodeji Olumi, OGTV News.
President of the Toronto Institute of Pharmaceutical Technology, Professor Alexandra Olusegun McGregor, has called for the cultivation of medical cannabis in a controlled and well-supervised setting. Professor McGregor, who doubles as the Professor of Biopharmaceuticals, stated this on OGTV Current Affairs program, Hot Seat.
Be in a position, I'll legislate medical cannabis first, you know, and have the companies and who are going to be handling it provide the security measures that they need and proofs that they need to show that there is accountability. And by the way, these have been done in other parts of the world. Why is Nigeria so afraid of doing something that everybody else have done? South Africa, they've done it, medical cannabis. Zimbabwe, medical cannabis. Malawi have medical cannabis. These are smaller African countries, you know. Even Mozambique is passing regulation medical cannabis. These are tiny, tiny countries.
Yeah, but you know it's easier for tiny countries to control the plantation of cannabis than a country like Nigeria. I mean, the most populous black nation.
Nigeria should focus on medical use and defer the recreational use. Defer that until the country is ready for that kind of stuff.
Ogun State government has revealed that its continuous commitment to education, especially in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics (STEM), has yielded positive results visible in the outstanding performances of learners in both national and international competitions. The governor of the state, Prince Dr. Abeokuta, made this known at the 58th Annual National Conference of the Mathematical Association of Nigeria, MAN, themed Innovative Mathematics, Teaching, Learning, and Research during the pandemic era, held at the Junta of Cultural Center, Abeokuta, where he posited that STEM component has brought valuable contributions to a well-rounded education. The governor, represented by the Commissioner for Education, Science, and Technology, Professor Abayomi Arigbabu, explained that the study of mathematics helps young people to analyze information, eliminate errors, and make conscious decisions when designing solutions, revealing its administration efforts in ensuring improved methodology to teaching the subject through various training and workshops for the teachers of mathematics, chemistry, biology, physics, agricultural science, and information communication technology. In his address, the national president, Professor Kamaru Usman, reaffirmed the association's commitment in using technology to chart new ways to encourage teachers and lecturers in the development so as to share knowledge through the new normal collaboration, communication, and networking for global best practices. In his keynote address, Professor Ezekiel Ayola of the University of Ibadan submitted that there should be enough encouragement from government. Creative and new innovative ways should be identified in making teaching of mathematics interesting to inculcate new ideas to curriculum review and development, among others. Presenting the lead paper titled Innovative Mathematics, Teaching, Learning and Research During the Pandemic Era, Professor Alfred Olufemi Fatade of the Tai Solarin University of Education, Department of Mathematics, posited that mathematics play a vital role in fundamental ways to career innovation, business, finance, health, and defense. Hence, the need for any nation to tap into the power of mathematics for present and future development. For Nigeria to compete favorably with developed countries around the world, implementation of agreement and concrete investment in the education sector must be observed to help promote continuous development that will contribute to long-term economic growth. These were responses of cross-section of Nigerians while speaking to our reporter, Komisola Shokwaya, on the latest development by the Academic Staff Union of University, ASU strike action.
After months of prolonged discussions and deliberations between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the federal government on ways to improve public tertiary institutions, an outcome of an indefinite strike has been declared subsequent to over 6 months of warning and rollover strike. Since 2009, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has embarked on strike 8 times, largely due to the failure of Nigerian government to implement agreements it entered into with the union. Coming on the heels of this latest development, respondents expressed that the strike, a necessary evil, is a significant tool to jumpstart a reformation of the education sector.
An organization like ASU cannot be fighting for flimsy reasons, and it's neither a selfish cause. We are talking about the future of education in Nigeria. We are talking of revitalizing the educational system, particularly at tertiary level. We are talking about producing human capital that will be comparable to any standard worldwide. It's not a question of perquisites alone. And if lecturers now say they want improved pay, I don't think that is a sin, because if you compare, what is being, paid now with that of even lecturers in polytechnics and other places, you find out that there's no basis for comparison.
What ASU has been saying over time, it has always been the non-implementation of signed agreement by government. It didn't start with this government. You understand me? Successive governments since 2009 have always been like that. They will sign agreements and midway they will just drop it, not doing anything about it. And we can't continue like that.
Another set of people affected in this face-off seems to be the students, prospective intakes and undergraduates whose life has been on hold for about 7 months.
Fortunately, we are talking about youth restiveness. We are talking about kidnapping, a lot of disturbing developments from the side of the divide of the youths. But the system itself is could be said to be encouraging that, because the idle hands is the devil's workshop. Children that are not well brought up, that are not properly trained, and that are not properly mentored and monitored, seriously, the opportunity and chances of drifting off is very, very, very high.
The belief is that the only way out of this deadlock is for the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities to shift grounds.
It's like the case of a dog that is, infested by ticks. When the ticks are sucking the dog, sucking the blood, they think they're having parties until the dog dies, that they now know that they themselves will die. What we are saying here is beyond individual goal.
There was a warning strike. There was the actual strike. There have been series of negotiations, but unfortunately, ASU and the government have refused to shift grounds. So from both sides of the divide, it's very unfortunate. You see, the economy globally is in comatose. Things are bad. ASU is agitating for good and justifiable demands. But then, within the context of the prevailing situation in the country and globally, we have to shift grounds.
But steps towards this remain to be seen in concrete terms, meaning that this is one of the tussle that may linger on for a lot more time. Kumisola Shokoya, OGTV News.
And still ahead on the news, federal government to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by 2030. Details will be served. Of equipment and training facilities for youths will go a long way in engaging them in gainful activities, thereby giving less chances for criminal gangs or get-rich-quick schemes. This came to the fore during a courtesy visit by a team from the Industrial Training Fund and Wesley Group of Companies to the wife of the state governor, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun, where she subsequently pledged her support to ensure the smooth running of entrepreneurship development in the state. Margaret Okunlola reports that the Artisans Association of Ogun State used the opportunity to pledge their support to the Prince Dapo Abiodun-led administration. Her report.
Wife of Ogun State Governor Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun hosted these stakeholders and key entrepreneurs in their fields for interactive sessions on how to further change the narrative of development in the state. A team from Industrial Training Fund, Abeokuta Area Office, led by the Deputy Director, Area Manager, Mrs. Fumi Koka, intimated the gathering with activities of the Training Institute, the latest being Project T-Max. Another team from Wesley Group of Companies led by its chairman, Otumba Wasiu Taiwo, lauded efforts of Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun as he sought improved public-private partnership in the clothing and textile industry. Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun used the opportunity to stress the openness of the current administration towards private-public partnership.
It's always inspiring to see the private sector investment in the education sector, whether formal or informal. With the many problems plaguing our education sector at the moment, organizations like yours provide good alternatives in the form of vocational training and education with relevant skills for the future.
The Artisans Association of Ogun State, led by its chairman, Anthony Ayodele, equally lauded the attributes of the wife of Ogun State Governor, to which the group bestowed on the title of the first Grand Matron of the association. Margaret Okunlola, OGTV News.
The newly posted commander of narcotics of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, to Ogun State Command, Archie Abia Ibinabo, has led principal officers of the command on a tripartite visit to the wife of the Ogun State Governor, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. Similarly, the Ogun Alliance for Women in Politics also called for more involvement of women in politics across the state, while the Nigerian Society of Physiotherapists called for awareness on osteoarthritis ahead of September 8, 2022, which is the World Physiotherapy Day. These different groups were on visits to Mrs. Abiodun. Again, Margaret Okunola has details.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, is a federal agency saddled with the responsibility of eliminating production, processing, selling, exporting, and smuggling of hard drugs. The newly posted commander of narcotics to the Ogun State Command, Mrs. Achi Abia Ibinabo, on her first day of reporting for duty, paid a courtesy visit to the wife of Ogun State Governor, Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun. Mrs. Abiodun commended the command for being on top of their game in the fight against drug abuse.
We would involve ministries like the Ministry of Health, Education, Information, Important, Women Affairs, Youth and Sports, you know, Nigeria Police and all the NGOs. It has to be a collaborative effort if we want to go far. One sole purpose, and that is the eradication, the complete eradication. So our society, you can imagine a society that is totally drug-free. I mean, there will be a lot of sanity in our society.
Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun was then decorated as an advocate of war against drug abuse in the state. Also, ahead of 8 September, date for celebration of World Physiotherapy Day, the Ogun State branch of the Nigeria Association of Physiotherapists, led by its chairman, Mrs. Fumilola Akinlami, visited Mrs. Bamidele Abiodun to create awareness on osteoarthritis and the means of eradicating it in the state. Similarly, the senatorial leaders of the Ogun Alliance for Women in Politics, led by its president, Princess Adejoke Oshiyemi, also visited Mrs. Abiodun to intimate her of the objective of the group in the state. Margaret Okunlola, OGTV News.
Residents and commuters alike will soon heave a sigh of relief as Shaje Elega Mokola Road is soon to receive government attention for it to be motorable. Ogun State Governor Prince Dapo Abiodun, who gave the cheering news while on a working visit to the area, however, said his administration will not relent in its efforts towards bringing dividends of democracy to the people of the state. Benga Adekoya was at Shaje, Elega and Mokala communities for an up-to-date on the road.
Shaje Elega Road in Abeokuta local government of Ogun State is among other several projects inherited from the past administration by the Prince Dapo Abiodun-led government that is again set to receive the attention of the present administration.
I've been complaining for over so many years now, but having good roads, that one is going to improve the standard of living of we people that is working at that, because we are going to get a very easy access to our place of work and coming back.
The governor was on walking visit to the stretch of the road while querying the rationale behind the construction of the Mokola Junction flyover by the immediate past administration. However, pledged that his administration, as part of its plan to alleviate the sufferings of the people plying the road, would ensure the completion of the abandoned flyover.
Wọ́n ti fi owó orí yín wọ́n ti fi ṣe bíríìjì yìí àfi ká parí ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ kọ́ ọlọ́run bá parí ẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n gbogbo ìsàlẹ̀ bíríìjì yìí títí tó lọ sí ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ kòdó tí wọ́n lọ sí ẹlẹ́gà ìlúgùn àgọ́ òdo àmọ́ wọ́n bẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ lórí ẹ̀ ní wéré.
Alhaji Surajudeen Adebisi Bada, a notable businessman in Abeokuta, whose business and residents are along the area, could not but anticipated the relief people stand to gain upon completion of the road and was quick to thumb up Governor Abiodun for the intervention.
I'm so elated, I'm so happy, because this is what we have been looking forward to. We have suffered more than enough. Honestly, you need to know some of the vehicles that have got grounded here because of the bad road. And it is the whole axis from Shaje, Elega, Bokola, the whole thing, Ilugu. So we thank God that in our lifetime, the governor is coming up to do the needful.
OGTV News also observed that the ever-busy Elega market has also been extended to the main road due to the deplorable state of the road.
If the construction work starts, the market women will move their wares from the road.
The road also links various communities like Ajitadu, Ikija, and Route Itoku Market, Lafenwa Market, among others.
The federal government has unveiled Presidential Delivery Tracker website that will enable citizens monitor and give direct feedback on the quality and progress of government projects and programs in their localities. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bas Mustafa, disclosed that the online delivery tracker would also be used by central delivery coordinating units in its office to monitor the performances of ministries, departments, and agencies of government in public service delivery. The Presidential Delivery Tracker and website is designed by Central Delivery Coordinating Unit, CDCU, in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to track the implementation of government projects outlined by the Buhari administration for the purpose of accountability.
On a weekly basis, I submit a report to Mr. President, and I've started serializing the performances of the last quarter of ministries. I've taken 9 ministries so far, and I will continue until I finish all the way to the 29 ministries and the Office of the Head of Civil Service.
On the flip side of the FGF, he said the new website is easy to navigate and encourages real-time participation of citizens in government as they can search for the state of projects in their locality and upload feedback with pictures on the quality of public services from the comfort of their homes using their smartphones.
Of these projects in our communities, in our areas, and we are supposed to track it and report the implementation as to whether what is in the budget is what is visible on the ground.
We can realize this commitment and collaborate with all ministries, departments, and agencies to ensure that our country maximizes the essence of this presidential delivery tracker.
To achieve this objective, the CDCU has incorporated a performance management system with dashboards set up in key offices which serve as tools for measuring MDS performance in real time in the implementation of ministerial deliverables against negotiated targets.
The delivery tracker is an important initiative and should be encouraged across the 3 tiers of government.
We would like to see the measure of trust. To what degree do citizens trust that their engagement with the app will translate to positive outcomes? We want to see the measure of participation. So what percentage of the population will use the app?
The federal government is set to regulate the social work practitioners in the country following the assent to the Chartered Institute of Social Work Practitioners Establishment Act 2022 by President Muhammadu Buhari. The act, which establishes the Institute of Social Work Practitioners, is saddled with the responsibility of training and registration of persons aspiring to become social work practitioners in the country. The Institute is also determined the standard of knowledge and skill to be attained by persons seeking to be registered as chartered social work practitioners, amongst others. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, House of Representatives, Nasser Babali Ila, in a statement said the bill establishing the Institute is among those assented to by President Buhari recently. According to the statement, other bills that received the assent of the President include the legislation establishing the Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria, charged with the responsibility of advancing the study, training, and practice of counseling profession. Ila added that President Buhari also signed the bill establishing the National Institute of Credit Administration Establishment Act 2022. The federal government has officially launched Project T-Max, a technical and vocational education and training TVET program in Lagos aimed at lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by 2030. There are 7 pilot states listed for the pilot scheme, which are Lagos, Ogun, Edo, Enugu, Kaduna, Nasarawa, and Gombe, with the aim of empowering at least 15,000 Nigerians across the pilot states. 3,000 beneficiaries are being targeted in Lagos, while 2,000 each will benefit from other 6 states. TVET program has been approved by the National Steering Committee on National Poverty Eradication with Growth Strategy, NPRGS, chaired by the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, as one of the core interventions to achieve the federal government's goal of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by 2030. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Education Intervention, Fela Bank Olemo, and Lagos State Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, disclosed this at a media briefing and official launch of the program held at the State Ministry of Education, Alausa, Ikeja, Lagos. According to Bank Olemo, the project is also aimed at poverty alleviation and employment opportunities among the masses. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, has said that the country will stop importing petroleum products by 2023. Kyari disclosed this during a press briefing at the State House in Abuja on Tuesday. He spoke during the weekly ministerial briefing hosted by the Presidential Communications Team at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, and noted that the NNPC had the right to 20% of production from the Dangote refinery. He said the Dangote refinery, which will begin next year, would augment the output from state-owned refineries to meet Nigerians' demand for petroleum products. The Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps Kaduna State Command has placed divisional officers and residents on red alert over the dangers of floods in the state. The command's public relations officer, DSC Abib Badamasi, gave the alert in a statement on Tuesday in Kaduna. Badamasi said the alert followed a prediction by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency on possible flooding, especially in areas considered as most vulnerable, and the need to prevent and manage flooding-related disasters. According to him, the NSCDC has placed its personnel in disaster management unit and residents on red alert as part of responsibilities bestowed on the Corps to manage disasters. He said the state commandant, Mr. Idris Ada, stated these in an interaction with affected officers and the need to sensitize residents on the affected areas to mitigate and respond to the natural disaster. But Badamasi said the warning had become imperative considering the frequency and high degree of rains in August, which will last to the end of September and even part of October. He added that the situation demands urgent and absolute attention to collectively take sensitization to the doorsteps of the susceptible population by working in synergy with relevant stakeholders, adding that the commandant specifically called on Disaster Management Unit divisional officers in charge of Kaduna North, Kaduna South, Chikum, and Jema to ensure swift and proactive action to mitigate the situation. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has dismissed a fresh bail application that was brought before it by the detained Deputy Commissioner of Police, DCP Abba Kyari, who is facing drug trafficking charge. The court in a ruling said that that was delivered by Justice Emeka White held that the suspended DCP failed to establish why its previous decision that ordered his remand in Kuje prison pending the determination of the case against him should be set aside. It held that the fact that Kyari and 4 other police officers that are facing trial with him did not escape when Kuje Correctional Center was recently attacked by insurgents was not enough to prove that they will not jump bail once they are released from custody. Justice White dismissed Kyari's argument that the Kuje jailbreak constituted an exceptional circumstance and the court should consider and review its earlier ruling that denied him bail. It held that the development that the defendant relied upon did not fall within the purview of sections 162 and 163 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, ACJA 2015, to warrant the court to vary its subsisting order. More so, Justice White held that since the NDLEA has not closed its case, both Kyari and his co-defendants could interfere with some of the vital witnesses or undermine their prosecution if released on bail. Kyari, who hitherto headed the police intelligence response team, IRT, in facing trial, along 4 other members of his team, ACP Sunday J. Ubia, ASP Bawa James, Inspector Simeon Arigiba, and Inspector John Nuhu. The court had on March 28 declined to release the defendants on bail pending the determination of the 8-count charge the NDLEA preferred against him. Up next, we'll bring you some business report.
It's good to have you join us on the business segment of the news. The President, Muhammadu Buhari, has assented to 8 bills passed by the National Assembly. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, House of Representatives, Nasiru Babaleila, made this known in a statement in Abuja. The statement read, His Excellency, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, assented to 8 bills recently passed by the National Assembly. Domestic airlines have continued to cut down on their workforce as the crisis in Nigerian aviation industry lingers. It was also gathered that though plans were on the way to re-engage some of the disengaged workers, this would basically happen when more airlines belonging to the affected carriers start to operate. Airline officials said that workers who were asked to leave were mainly those associated with the day-to-day operations of airplanes, as the crisis led to the drop in the number of functional aircraft in the sector. This came as officials of Dana Air confirmed that though the airline had been out of operations for about a month, it was working to resume operation in September. The cost of Jet A1 jumped from less than 300 naira per litre to over 800 naira per litre within a few months, warranting an increase in airfares by airlines that could manage to get the commodity. Others that could not survive the situation, such as Aero contractors, had to temporarily suspend operation. Aero suspended operation last month. The federal government on Tuesday said it believes it has taken the right decision to hire private contractors to man its oil pipeline network nationwide. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, Mr. Mele Kyari, disclosed this to journalists when he appeared at the 49th session of the State House briefing organized by the Presidential Communication Team at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Kyari argued that although the security agencies are doing their part, end-to-end pipeline surveillance would require the involvement of private entities and community stakeholders.
To be able to reliably deliver energy while continuously creating value for our stakeholders and our shareholders particularly, which is all of us in this country.
Feeding further questions on the contracts, Kyari explained that although the federal government is not dealing directly with a former militant in the area, Tumpolo, it has signed a contract with a company in which Tumpolo has interest.
When we are done with our refineries and the Dangote refinery, very many other small initiatives that we are doing, small modular condensate refineries that we are building, if that happens, and we are very optimistic it will happen, you will see that this country will now be a net exporter. As a matter of fact, it will be a hub of export of petroleum product, not just to the West African sub-region, but to the rest of the world. This will happen. The flow of supply will change. By middle of next year, it will change.
Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Dr. Zainab Ahmed, has disclosed that the government has planned for 60% of revenue to be spent on debt servicing, but in some months the ratio went up to 90%. Ahmed made the declaration in Abuja when she said the 2023 budget had a proposed deficit of 11.3 trillion naira. She was addressing a sitting of the House of Representatives Committee on Finance on the 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework. Ahmed said the government was projecting revenue of 8.46 trillion naira for 2023, 1.9 trillion naira, of which would come from oil-related sources, while the balance would come from non-oil sources. She said the budget would premise on $70 per barrel of crude oil and an exchange rate of 435.57 naira to the dollar. And finally, the Nigerian Communications Commission has introduced a new international termination rate which takes effect from September 1, 2022. This is the second in 8 months. The new rate, which is now 0.10 10 cents per minute as against the earlier $0.045 will still be paid in dollars, and operators will receive an increasing rate in naira terms should devaluation continue. ITR is the rates paid to local operators by international operators to terminate calls in Nigeria. Subsequently, the IDS wrote letters to NCC and petitioned the National Assembly demanding a review of the rates if they are to remain in business. As such, a new document released on Tuesday and signed by the Executive Vice Chairman, NCC, Professor Umar Dambata, titled Determination of Mobile International Termination Rate as amended, issued by the NCC and dated August 25, 2022. The Commission agreed after various consultations that there were indeed post-implementation challenges which necessitated the need for further engagement with relevant stakeholders. According to NCC in the document, the Nigerian transit carriers shall terminate inbound international calls in the network of domestic operators at a discount of 21% on the $0.10. The Commission said the discount is based on the same asymmetric corridor contained in its MTR determination of 2018. And that brings us to the end of the business segment of the news. We now go back to Wally for the rest of the bulletin.